All right. All right. Welcome, Raquel Bruno. We are live.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for coming on. This is going to be a lot of
Anytime.
fun because this
Anytime, my friend. Anything for an old friend. And I mean
absolutely.
old in the fact of how many years we know each other, not in how we are.
Yeah, right. I know. God. Well, you are the most talented lady. You do so many things.
I'll
And
pay you later.
I would love for you to talk about some of the things you're working on now. You're a TV booker, producer. You DJ Wednesday and Saturday nights on Twitch. I mean, tell me more details.
So I've run my company Drive Entertainment Group. I've had it now 15, 16 years. I started after I left Viacom, which of course, a lot of the folks that we all know collectively, when I was a booker at MTV Radio over there and helped to launch a lot of careers, which is really where I got my start as a talent and TV producer. But also, even before that, when I worked at Nick at Night and TV Land, I was talking about this earlier with the Producers Guild, really is when it kind of started planting the seeds for me as to when I wanted to, like, it finally cultivated, like, oh, talent booking, that's what I want to do. Because they don't really teach that to you in school. I remember my guidance counselor handed me a piece of paper and said, well, what do you want to do on here? I'm like, it's not on here.
Right.
And being a musician's kid, I grew up around musicians all the time. I was in recording studio floor when my parents were recording all the time. And I knew I wanted to be around creatives. That was the most important thing to me, whether they were music or actors or anyone in the creative field. I knew I didn't necessarily want to be in front of the camera, although there were plenty of times where I wanted to either be a guest VJ or whatever. But I knew that, watching my parents struggle and, making a go of it with their music, I knew that I wanted to be behind the scenes to help those actually have a voice and a platform. So with that, when I started Drive, I really actually started out as a manager. I started managing David Casey, who is a TV and film director. I was managing Earl Slick, who is, Bowie and
Oh,
Lennon's
I
guitar
remember.
player. And I was managing, and that's how I got to know Glenn Matlock. And, I was managing the super group with Clem Burke, him and Earl. And it was called Slinky Vagabond. So that's really where I got my start. And then I realized I'm really known as a booker, and what solidified it were two things. One, the logo team brought me on board and helped me with an affiliate launch of the network. And then, of course, we went on to do Logo Now Next Awards, where we gave Lady Gaga her TV debut. And also, I had a very famous buddy who was a publicist, who's now very famous. At the time, she had the Duvernay agency, and that was Ava Duvernay. And she
Ah,
called me up and said, I hear you're in LA and you launched your company. And I have my client, Jennifer Hudson, because I had done the UNCF tribute to Aretha Franklin, and we brought a up and comer named Jennifer Hudson on the show.
wow.
And at the time, it was her Oscar party, and it was the year she won, and I stayed to help her book the party. So that's when I realized that booking and producing was really more in line with what I was meant to do from the very beginning. That was
Wow.
2007. Yeah. Right.
And some of your
Yep, I'm
fans
dating
are in
myself.
chat right now, Liam and Ken.
Hi,
So,
kids. I can't see you. I can only hear through Jamie because I'm not
yes,
on Twitch.
yes. Yeah, we're doing this through Zoom. But yeah, as Liam asks, even though he knows the answer, what
Right.
kind of music does Raquel spin?
Liam is so good at setting it up, teeing it up, as
Yeah.
they say. So I spin everything from new wave to punk to disco. Any R&B, hip hop, anything that really just is fun music. Sometimes my goth kids will come out and I'll play a song for them. I mean, really it's very similar to when I spun in the city when I was at Lit or Black and White or Niagara or Manitoba's. I would just make sure that no matter what group was in the room, everyone was taking a journey, a musical journey. And that's what I do every week with Aqua Tool Dance Party, which stems from a zine that I had back in the day where a lot of us contributed to. And it was all 70s and 80s, new wave and punk rock. And it really is just, songs that kind of got forgotten a little bit, B-sides of our favorite artists that don't always get to be played. I'll play tomorrow night or Wednesday night, I'll probably play some B-sides of Missing Persons that doesn't always see the light of day, but are good songs. So it just depends, you know. And of course, I love showing off all my color vinyl and picture
Yeah.
discs, and I'm a ridiculous vinyl obsessed freak. And but I love it because even last night there was a DJ that's been on. Her name is Blake Hart. She's always been digital. She's been digital for the last 20 years. And she was like, I'm okay. I'm inspired. I want to do vinyl again. She's DJing and she's like, oh my God, this is so difficult. I'm like, yeah, it's
Yeah.
not an easy track. Vinyl to like know where you want to go with vinyl is tough, but I love it. I wouldn't have it any other way.
Well, also, Ken makes a good point in chat. You do creative, amazing narratives with music. You do tell a story every set.
Thank you. It's
Yeah.
important because I was a ravenous obsessed kid with MTV. I watched 120 minutes. I mean, and I watched Night Flight, and I watched anything that had Andy Warhol. I mean, I was obsessed with anything pop culture that intersected into television and music.
Yeah.
So I think it's important for those that, you know, love talking about. I remember interviewing like Susan Seidelman, who was one of the very first female directors. It doesn't always get the love, but she did Smithereens and she did Desperately Seeking Susan. I made sure to
Yeah.
highlight that. So, you know, and you don't always realize where like pop culture intersects either. And I just love, you know, giving those tidbits. It's a really, as Liam says, I love telling those stories. So it's a pleasure because I am like, I used to say I have useless information, but you know what? It turns out it's not as useless. People actually, I should have been on remote control. I probably would have
Right.
done all right.
Me too. Oh, and I have to introduce you to my music trivia every other
Yes,
Thursday because
I would
we
love
would
it.
kill with you on my team.
Oh, I'm in. Just tell me. Sign me up. You know, I'm a
Yeah.
softball player. I'll be your ringer.
Well, you know what? It's really it's so great when you're talking to friends. It comes so easy, and we have such a similar background. We used to spend
Mhm.
lots of nights out in the same
Lots of nights.
places, and
And it was great. You supported me then, Jamie, and I love you for that. And then we'd see each other the next day at the studios, and you'd be bringing Nickelback through for their 10th interview. I mean, it was
with
great.
my dark glasses on, like,
Exactly. I would
yeah.
spin on a Wednesday night. I think that's why I chose Wednesday because I used to spin on Wednesdays at Idlewild and then, you know, DJ till 4 and then crawl on into MTV at like 9, 10 o'clock the next day. I don't know how the hell I did it. I was like, what am I out of my mind? But
I
I
don't
wouldn't
know
have
how
it any other
any of
way.
us did it,
Exactly.
and we did it
I
for
miss pieces
years.
of it though. I miss the socialization and getting to see everybody come together. And that's one of the things. It's like music has always been interwoven into my life. And but it's also the connective tissue for so many of us that we met either through Aquatool or through MTV days. And you know, as I mentioned the other day on Twitch, you know, Ken's on here. Ken and you are like two of my closest friends that Ken and I were set up on a friend date. We were literally set up like, you both love Gary Newman. This was 1994, 1995. You both love Gary Newman. I think you should know each other. And that
Who
was it. And I was
introduced
like,
you?
so it was Michelle Ferguson
Oh my God, of
and
course.
Derek. They were like, you need to know. And Derek, who worked there, came to stay with me just stay with me from LA for like 1 week. And he never left to go back home. He just stayed. So, you know, I owe so much to to the music industry because I wouldn't have had these lifelong friends. I just wouldn't have.
And you bring so much more dimension to it because you started DJing when we all really needed some socialization. I
I
even
needed it
started the
too.
show for that reason too, because
Mhm.
I get to see my friends that way. But we also get to educate people. But you
Right.
came around at the perfect time and
Thank
did
you.
this show that was like a service to everyone.
It means a lot to me. And there were nights, and, and I don't know if Courtney's on, but there were times where I was like, Courtney, I can't do it. I'm either spent or exhausted because it does take a lot out of you. As much as I love it, I have to plan the sets. I have to pull the records. It's still
Yeah.
digging in the crates. And I always try to do not the same set every week. I try to always mix it up, throw in some tracks you might not have heard. But that takes energy. And, you know, raising a child in COVID,
Yeah.
running a business, it's tiresome. But I also realized, like, in the beginning I get tired, and then all of a sudden I get energized by everyone's energy on it because I get to see, you know, we get at least, I may not see your faces, but I know your energy is there and I can feel everyone's, you know, joining every week. That means a lot because now there's a community of folks in the industry, outside of the industry, that are actually looking out for one another, and friendships have been formed. And that to me was the ultimate goal.
And speaking of, our friend Cheese says, if you had to pinpoint what's the one thing that drives you, you are so real. So your real motivation, please. And Scheme of Things and Mod Pro are on as well, saying hello.
Hi, that's Jer and Shaz.
Yeah.
Hi, kids. So Cheese Cheese is a great example of meeting good friends through
Yeah.
Twitch, and I love his set. I mean, his set is we complement each other because he plays stuff that I have never heard, and I'll play kind of like the newer punk ska, and he just plays the original reggae and ska, and I learn so much from him. So what drives me is I have to, it's almost like I almost say like my friends who have to take on clients, whether they're like radio people or what have you. I remember Sharon Sperber, who's one of my really good friends. And
Mine
this goes
too.
back to how I feel as well. She would call me up I've known her since my GLS days in college radio. That's how long I know Sharon, when she was Sharon Jaffe. And she was at Arista. And she'd call me up and and this is why I fell in love with her. She said, listen, I've got 20 tracks. 10 of them are shit. I'm not going to lie. 5 of them are decent. 5 of them I think you're really going to love. However, there's one of the 10 that are shit. I kind of need you to add. Would you be willing? And she was honest about it. And you know what? I liked her honesty as opposed to a couple other radio people that would call and be like, I got 50 great songs. I'm like, you're lying. They're all terrible. So
Hmm.
for me, I think what drives me is, I work closely with the American Black Film Festival. I work closely with Soul Train Awards. Work closely with BIPOC. My message has always been about supporting women, supporting marginalized people, supporting BIPOC, supporting LGBTQ. Nothing makes me happier than working with nonprofits. My John Oates Fest, which I don't know if he's on. If he is, I love you, my friend. I'm representing. Um,
Your husband is
he's
on.
working on Feeding America, and that was why I got involved. What'd you say?
Your husband is on.
Oh, good. And Chris is on upstairs. He's like, I'll pay attention while I'm working.
Yeah, totally.
Um, it was
Yeah,
great.
you really
That's
are a
what drives
giver.
me is giving a voice where we don't always have a lot of voices. Because as a woman in this industry and also as a producer, I have to literally elbow my way to sit at the big table and and learn not to make excuses for it, not say, oh, I'm sorry, or shrink down to make yourself feel better in other people's. It's like, no, you know what? As I always say on the show, you are enough. And that is important for people to know. And I think telling the stories of people that don't always have a chance to tell stories, giving a platform to artists that I believe, like there's an artist, right? There's a sibling group called Infinity Song. We booked them for a couple different things and for MTV, and now we just booked them for Oats Fest. They are incredible and they're going to be huge. I love being able to find talent that is going to make a difference in their future. And that's important for me as well.
Yeah, I mean, and I think as women in the business, we've always been, we've earned our spot. You know,
Right.
I
Right.
was talking earlier to Maria Ferrero, and was talking about when I used to be at Ozfest, and I used to run and sit next to Sharon Osbourne and Gloria Cavalera just to learn something.
Yep.
You know,
100%, because they held court and they did not make excuses for it. And it's still not equal. We're still
no.
fighting for equality. For women are still making, well, don't even get me started, but all different types of women are making between 40 and 80 cents to the dollar. And so that's something I fight all the time. I'm a part of Producers Guild now, and I couldn't be more proud. I don't know if Dave Mace is on. Dave Mace, I shout him out all the time. If it wasn't for him, he was the one that said, you want to go to Producers Guild? Let's do it. I will make sure that you're involved. And I did a mentorship today for 20 producers that didn't know what the best way and all the nuances is to work with talent. And I thought, well, these guys know what it is. And they were like, no, it's not something you can easily pick up. It's so nuanced. It's such a skill that when you have it, you don't even realize that it's something that just comes naturally for what you do. And I know you have that with people that you work with, because it is a very tricky balance of being firm yet flexible and having them understand, like, you cannot walk all over me, but I'm here to listen when you're ready.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, and that's perfect. Oh, mom's here too.
Mom,
Hi,
I
Lois.
love it.
Um, so, we, in bringing it kind of around to what I usually talk about on the show, is you, you and I, we know some things that other people don't know, but it's just kind of, it's inborn to us. And
Right.
I what I strive to do here is to teach people kind of how to work with someone like you. Like,
Mhm.
their talent might not be A,
Mhm.
but there are places for B and C, and
Absolutely.
how are you best approached with information, and what kind of information do you like?
So you're saying from a publicity standpoint, how
Yeah, like
public
if a
get to me?
publicist has a client that they think would be great for an event that you're
Mhm.
booking or that you're
It happens
producing.
all the time. You know, Bohemian Rhapsody, we did the red carpet for that, and a few people had reached out for artists that weren't necessarily A-listers, but they fit the part for rockers that should be on that carpet. I don't know if Christine Wolf is on. Her and I go back and forth about stuff all the time and trying to, how do we fit certain talent to fit within the role? And, I keep open dialogue with most of the publicists that I deal with all the time. And I know Fiona Bloom has been great about reaching out saying, hey,
Yeah.
I've got these clients. What do you want to do? I think just approaching me, because the thing is, we've talked about that. I try to get back to everyone who sends me not necessarily a press release, but one that is actually tailored to me. Like, hey Raquel, I think this is a great artist you should check out. Infinity Song was like that. Lisa Frank, I don't know if Lisa Frank is on. She works video promotion like no one I've ever seen. And she will say, I've got this artist, I'm telling you, and she'll send me stats and she'll say, like, this is where their trajectory is. And something that I can easily turn around and send to the client and say, like I did with John Oates, hey John, Michelle, who also works with me, we were like, hey, Infinity Song are up and coming, they're incredible, they're soulful, they're a beautiful brother and sister band, you've got to check them out. He was like, I'm in. But we were able to kind of supply him with like why they matter, and even so he just heard their music and that was it.
Well, with
um
that, what kind of stats are good
I think
ammunition
stats
for
of
you?
like, it depends. The thing that's so tricky, and I talked about this earlier, is everything I do is very nuanced. Whether it's a digital series or a baking show or a Netflix show, I think what helps me as a talent booker and producer is understanding. I remember we used to do meet and greets all the time where it's like, hey, there's a certain artist and meet with the artist. And that's how I got to know Lindsay Sterling well. Like, hey, I'm into sci-fi, I'm into films, I love to play this sport. Like having an understanding of them 360 is really
Yes.
important because, yeah, I mean, I can go on their socials and I can see it. It helps to list it out. But I think like, well, hey, where do they want to go? Do they eventually want to cross over to acting? Do they eventually want to create their own production company? I think it's just important to understand the real behind the scenes look at an artist. So when I'm working on a conversation with, or someone that might want to present, or a digital series, or even the stand cam for the VMAs, it's like, you know what, so and so is not great, but their social, they're not known quite yet, but their socials are huge. They had this mixtape that they sent out on the streets, and what's going on with them.
So
And it's like,
social
you know
reach
what?
is a
Social reach
good
is
stat,
important depending on the client. Yeah.
and engagement,
And
because social
engagement.
stats can be fudged, so
Of course it
engagement's
can.
important.
Right.
Yeah. Like
But I
if
also think it's the personality of the talent. There's a lot of times where, like with music or musicians, they'll say, well, hey, can you get me tape on them? I want to see how they read in the room. I want to see how they speak.
mm,
And that's an important piece because they could be incredible musicians, but they may fall flat when they're actually doing interviews. So it's important to, even have that as an EPK or something that you can send to me, where it's like, here's another side of this artist that you might not know about.
right, right. Yeah, I mean, just because some people are like, okay, we have a radio hit, go get television.
Right.
And, I've always said it's not that simple. You know, social stats and engagement are great if
Hmm.
you have somebody dynamic, if you have somebody that the camera loves.
Right.
If you're gonna hem and haw all day, there's no place for you because it's go go
Right.
go on TV.
It is. Right, and they have to be willing to do the smaller outlets as well as the bigger outlets. It's always a quid pro quo.
Yeah.
Hey, if you're able to take that, there's been plenty of artists that they took the journey with us. And I even laughed with Lady Gaga when I first met her. I was like, "Well, it was nice knowing you." She's like, "Oh, come on." I'm like, "Okay, great." And then that was it. So same with Alicia Keys. We had her in at MTV. Curtis Waller had, I think, one of the very first interviews. He literally had a CD. It was like something from when they were just showcasing her. And he's like,
Mm.
I love this artist. Please bring her in. And then she always came back for the radio forums because she realized she knew where she started out with us. So, I think it's just it's the management around them,
Mm.
it's the publicity around them, and it's their willingness to take chances. I keep talking about Infinity Song. They're willing to put the work in, and that speaks volumes to a booker where it's like, I was here from the beginning. Let's do this journey together. It's important.
When you found Gaga, like, what about her before this all happened said this is going to be somebody?
They had a showcase, and the team was just blown away by her energy, and they saw something in her that was like, let's do this. And the second she just walked in the room and nobody knew who she was, and I remember Morrow, my friend Morrow, shot, we have photos of her, and everyone was like, who is this? Cindy Lauper was there. Like, we had a lot of people there, and they just were like blown. If Dave Mace is on, he'll tell you people were just blown away by her presence. And we owe a lot to our friend Jennifer at Interscope, who took the journey with us. And she always had great artists that came on to Logo New Now Next Awards, because she
Mm.
saw that as an opportunity, her and Christine, as an opportunity to, the artists that made sense in the LGBTQ community that they knew was going to help put songs on the map. I mean, they were very strategic about it, and they were very smart about it.
Yeah, yeah.
She had that thing, she had that it. She walked in the room and she just, all
You
eyes
knew.
were on her. You couldn't ignore her. It won't be ignored, Dan. You couldn't, she just went, you just couldn't keep your eyes out on. And she was still emerging as Lady Gaga as we
Right.
know her.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that's so it's so key to be able to see that intangible thing in people,
Yes.
and that's what makes you good at what you do. Um
It's a spark, it's an energy, it's a spark. It's just like, even when was watching, I worked on American Idol last season. I In my gut, my mom will tell you, I had a feeling who was going to be the winner based on just the journey and the passion and the drive. That's why my company is called that. And so, there's something about talent and everything that they do. It's also, ironically, I watch talent when the cameras are not on to see how they interact in the room. And it's key to me. And I will, and there's times where I'm like, I don't know if I want to work with this person again, or you know what? This person is going to go far. And so, because it's when people are not watching that you see the real them.
yeah, absolutely. So question from our friend Cheese. What are your thoughts on the future of your field, being that COVID is around?
So I'm on a lot of the Producers Guild. We do a lot of roundtables and talks and what have you. And just moving forward, what's going to be a normal part of our productions, 20 to 30% of the budgets at least are going to be towards PPE. It's going to be towards COVID testing. I mean, where everyone's going to want to feel a certain level. Insurance is going to go up. Everyone's going to want to feel a certain level of comfort, because even mentally it's going to be a long time before we really feel comfortable. I mean, productions are out there doing it. I did a production for Netflix, so I can't discuss yet, but I will soon. It's going to air early summer, and everything was shot at this person's home. And we did it, and we had one case we had to cancel the booking because the person had tested positive, and they're fine. But we had to change the booking. But I think that's just going to be in the background of everything that we do. I'm more concerned about our live events and our concerts for any of my musician friends out there, getting people to feel comfortable in a crowded space again. I mean, it's going to look very different for quite some time until we have more vaccines, we have more people willing to take the vaccines. So luckily for what I do, and a lot of the shows I've worked on, such as John Oates and these other shows I'm working on, they're virtual. So we're able to, we're going to be in boxes for a little bit longer. So luckily I've had the ability to work on shows that can do that. Now I'm working on a project right now that actually is in person, and it is a little bit trickier to book because not everybody is ready to be on a set or a stage. It really depends on if they've had COVID already, if they had a vaccine already, how they're feeling about being, not, being out in the real world again. Everybody has a different take on it. So I think it's going to be different, but I do think, and I've talked to Dave about this, I've talked to a lot of my industry friends, people are going to be so excited to get back out there again, but it just may be a few more months before we really truly get there.
Yeah, I mean, I think you have a particular advantage because you make people feel comfortable. You're thorough and you're really good with your talent. They all love you. So,
Thank you.
yeah.
Thank you. It means a lot because as my mom will tell you, I grew up with talent. I grew up with my mom being a singer and my dad being a songwriter, my uncles all playing with Frank Sinatra. And so I watched, there's a certain shorthand that happens. I have two sides of my brain that function at the same time. There's the musician side and creative side where I can read a room within 2 seconds and see something's not right. Something doesn't feel right. They're unhappy with something, and I try to diffuse it as quickly as possible because and I said this to producers earlier today. You can't start out not telling the truth on something. You've got to have integrity. You've got to be honest about it. People will trust you, and if you don't have trust, you have nothing. And so that's one side of it. And then I also understand how the business side of it works. So I find that I'm able to meld it together and basically translate to each side of what each other needs. Because so much of the time production is like, oh, it's just talent. Talent's like, why am I getting screwed over? And it's always this kind of back and forth. I said today, I'm like, talent a lot of the time, talent bookers, we're the first to get blamed, the last to get thanked. And then without talent, there's no content. So it's almost like, why are bookers treated so terribly a lot? And I'm very vocal about it, which is why
Hey,
I became a producer.
you're treated
You
the
know,
same way publicists are.
exactly. We're in the same boat. And it
Yeah.
frustrates me. That's why when I work with a lot of publicists or I get hired by publicists, I go in there, I'm like, I know what you need. Let's have a conversation. Like right now, we're talking very closely with the PR team that's handling the Oats Fest. I know what they need. I'm like, if I can get other talent to do this, of course we will. And we work in conjunction. I'm taking on a big part of the social media aspect with
Mm.
John's social media person who's wonderful. But it's understanding that shorthand and also being very patient with one another. Be like, I'm on your side. I know what you need. How do we get this done together? And it's important because then you feel that you're collectively in on a project that can to get to the finish line.
Now, do you get a lot of pitches? See, this is my whole crusade behind this show. Do you get a lot of pitches going, got anything for my artist, or got anywhere to put my art, like vague stuff that doesn't really apply to you?
Sometimes it depends. Sometimes I do. The more seasoned publicists that I've worked with for over 15, 20 years,
Yeah.
you guys know what I need. And you'll say, look, I've got this. Again, I don't know if I know Christine Wolf was going to come on, Ken Phillips. Like there's so many good publicists. You will say, I've got this artist. This is what they're about. Hey, what do you have going on? It's almost like we have a meeting of the minds and say, hey, what are you working on that we might be able to put this together? When I worked on the MLB Fan Cave, Christine made sure that LMFAO came on board. Like at the height of their, like she's been,
Yeah.
she's always delivering. You are always delivering. Like I know there are my go-to publicists that will really look at my offer or my ask and go, this is a real thing. Take it to management. Say, look, I think it's smart that you do this because before I take a client on, I will also look at the risk versus reward. Like, am I really going to be able to deliver on this? Am I able to, because a lot of the pressure is on me
Yeah.
if I can't get, bookings for it. So, and I have a tendency, I want to work with people either I've worked with before or that are a truly trustworthy place where people go, okay, it's Disney, okay, it's MTV, okay, it's a place that we have known. And even when they launch a new endeavor, we know that it's at least within an IP that makes sense.
Right. Right. Yeah. I mean, I feel like I speak to younger publicists and say, do your homework,
Yes,
find out what people need and
right.
meet those needs. And I think that a lot of people don't think about what the other side needs, just what they need to happen.
It's
And
really true. Do your
yeah,
research. I say it all the time. Like even if you're going out to a producer or what have you, what have they worked on in the past and what do you think they're going to need? Sometimes it's tricky for me because I work on so many different types of shows. I gave up doing daily shows because they're just a grind. I couldn't do it anymore. It was too tough. But I'm glad had that experience. But I think it's important that so I'm not like, hey, it's the booker at blah blah blah
yeah,
show.
yeah.
I'm like, hey, I've got this digital series, I've got this show series, I've got this docu series that's coming up, and it's always a different thing. So it just you have to do your homework. You're right.
Yeah,
Yes.
bless you.
Of course.
No, of course. I really think that, like what I want to get out of this is that I want people to know what they can put together for
Hmm.
someone of your stature. Like, yeah, you know me, Christine, Ken, like we all know what you need and we put it together and front load it for you. But if somebody has the next Gaga
Hmm.
and they know they're sure of it, like they can put together a package and approach you in a particular way, but approach you from a place of knowledge.
I actually would go even a step further. And someone like Tasha Stout, who I love, she just did a showcase the other day. Invite us to a showcase. Put a virtual thing together. Sometimes we just need to feel the vibe of the artist. We want to see it. I mean, I miss going out for one of those reasons alone. I would go see new artists all the time
Mm,
because not only could I catch up with my industry friends, but I'm also able to see an artist and catch a feel for them. And if it's an off night, no problem. Let's do a virtual thing and see what they're all about. Um, I think, one of my good friends, Lana Walker, is another person. She's always out there saying to me, look, I have this artist. I want you to check them out. And here's why. But I think sometimes I just would rather have a one-on-one with an artist like this. Let me interview them. Let me talk to them. Let me catch a vibe. Let me, play a couple of songs for me. Let me see what you're at. That is really important
mm,
because then I can see what their personality is like, how they are under pressure. It's almost like a little bit of training for them in a
yeah,
sense. And I just think that thinking out of the box a little bit for someone like me is important, and some for other bookers too. They'll tell you it's like sometimes I'd rather just see them in action
yeah,
and not just read words on a page.
yeah. I mean, just because I feel like sometimes the industry is so insular that
Yeah.
how will the next Gaga find fame? You know what I mean? Like, because
Well,
we've
keep in
gotten,
mind there's so much also which unfortunately bypasses a lot of what the publicists and bookers have to do, where they're found on IG, they're found on
mm,
TikTok, they're found on YouTube, and they're putting out their own stuff, which is good to a point, but you still need people guiding you in how to navigate the system.
yeah,
And that's, I've worked with plenty of influencers when we've been at MTV, and we remember when you and I have had to do the red carpet. And my brother laughs all the time because I always throw him to an influencer, like just handle them and show them how it's done,
I
because they
love
don't
that you
understand
heard it.
how it's done. They're, a lot of times they're doing the interviews on a carpet and they don't know what the heck they're doing. Some of them, the good ones, get it, but it's just their very first time and they've been in their own room TikToking or whatever. It's different than interaction, and you have to know how to interact with other people, and that is a skill that has to be taught if they don't already have it.
Yeah, I mean, I remember when I worked with you and I did the MTV Movie Awards with you, and it was I was with Alaska, and God, she was funny, but
Hilarious.
I mean, amazing. But I saw these two little girls who were influencers, and they kept like wandering off their mark, and like,
Right.
yeah,
Right.
yeah, and it's just
Yeah.
so great that you have like a team that you travel with. I mean, it's so great that your
I have a team
brother's
that I
on your
trust.
team.
It's why I pulled you. And it's like people I know that could handle talent. I can't be everywhere on a red carpet, especially when we do the VMAs. I just can't be everywhere. And the internal team trusts me because they know I just want to deliver for them. I want to make sure digital is handled well, the talent team is handled well, and just make everyone happy. So those that I bring into the mix are those that either have interfaced with the internal crews, knows a lot of the publicists, and have a trust where they're not going to freak out in front of
Yeah,
the talent. It's like
yeah,
anyone I know that comes into the mix with drive, I know that I can trust them when they're in their each of their individual universes. Everything will be handled. And if not, I'll get a walkie call saying, hey, Rock, we have a problem. Will you come here? And then I can troubleshoot. But
yeah,
that's the only way I can level up with my company. If I don't
right.
trust, if I, I do a lot of it myself. But thank God I have freelancers that can jump in, like Michelle on my team.
Oh, she's
Michelle
great.
Welch. I mean, Michelle was my rep at Sony. I talk about it all the time. And she's like, when it was, time when I opened Drive, she goes, and she was leaving Sony. She's like, hey, Rock, I'm kind of work for you. I'm like, get out of here. You were a VP and what? You were VP of promo at Sony. You're out of your mind. But she wanted to go into production. You know what? She's working for Jesus and Mero, and she works on all my big shows. And I couldn't be more thrilled to have someone like that I don't even have to think about it. She goes off and does what she has to do.
It's
And
a
it's like,
super specialized skill, and I know that because I've been doing this 20 years and I was the dumbest one on your team.
You were
I was
not the dumb.
like, I
It's
kept
just
going,
a different.
Russell,
You're used
save
to
me.
walking them down the carpet. Now you're receiving them on the. It's just a different flip. It's
Yeah,
just a
no, but
flip.
I
That's
didn't.
all.
I was
The
like,
flip of the script.
Russell, like Russell was so helpful.
No, but that's what I'm saying. Like we're in the same boat, but they're very different skill sets that we
Oh
use. Some
yeah,
are similar, but then some are really strategizing in a different way, where you're focused on one talent or one set of talent, and we're like, we got to get everybody within our talent to, give us the content we need in a very short amount of time. It's a lot. It's intense, those
my
carpets.
nephew's favorite photo of me is with the
The
thing on,
headset.
the walkie on. Yeah, yeah.
I live for a Brittany Walker walkie. That's it. I like that. I am all about it. Everyone's like, I want the in ear. I'm like, no, I want the Brittany
Yeah.
or the.
Oh, that's his favorite thing. He says I look like a producer in it.
You
So
were a
I
producer.
know. Yeah.
Listen, when we open up again, you'll be doing it again. Don't you
Oh,
worry
please.
about
I was like, I'm Raquel's friend. Be nice to me.
it. You were great. It's just it's
But
people. That's
you
the thing.
respect it though. You like you learn to respect it because
Yeah,
I feel like everybody should do every job that surrounds what they do
100%. I couldn't
because
do
then you know
publicity.
how hard it is, you know?
Very hard. Like when people say, "Oh, I want to get this place and that place," I'm like, "Do you know how many other things you're competing against? And if they're even going to like your project, and you want the front page of the Times? What are you, insane?" Like I feel, and I've had to walk people back with their publicists. Like that's not how it works. It just
Right.
isn't. You have to understand that is a hustle, and you should be thrilled when you get whatever piece that you get for pickup. So I feel your pain. How many people are on Twitch, by the way? I feel like I'm in like
Oh
a,
God,
in a
we're
shadow.
breaking the records because it's you.
What? Get
Blake
out of here. Who's on?
Beach is on here. Your
Nice.
mother, your husband, uh, Commander Root, Liam, Lucky Norm, Mod Pro, Sassatoris,
Oh,
Senor
it's the
Dave
Blake Parts
G.
crew.
Yeah,
Nice.
it's really just the
That's
Raquel fan
awesome.
club. I
Well,
love it.
anyone who's on Twitch, I can't see you. Send me a note so I know you were here. Cheese, I know is on. I don't know if
I
Dave
do
made
know
it.
who's here. I'll so wait. Dave Senor Dave G says most of the streaming networks like Disney Plus, BET Plus, HBO Max, Facebook Watch are asking for A-list artists to bring them unscripted shows. Even Discovery, which was never interested in celebrities before, says it's absolutely necessary to make some noise to get subscribers. How do you feel about this? Do your clients want to put themselves out there as reality stars?
So
That's a
that would
good
be
point.
Dave Goldberg. I
Yeah.
guarantee you it's Dave Goldberg. Don't hide. I know it's you, Dave. I'm kidding. I know it's him. I know it's him because we work together. We partner on a lot of stuff. Yes, they do want some A-listers, but I think there are always are workarounds, believe it or not. There are situations, I was talking about this earlier, where a lot of actors want to start their own production companies because they want to start owning their content. They
Sure.
want to start also learning a different skill. Just because they're good on a stage does not mean they get bored and they want to try a different skill set. And that's why you see so many of them, especially in COVID, going, well, you know what, maybe I don't want to necessarily be on the road for 6 months at a time away from my family. Maybe I can figure out doing something that's a little more stable at home. So yes, I think if it's Dave Goldberg,
It
I
is. He
think right
says,
now.
not hiding, it's me.
Exactly. There you go. I think here's the thing I will tell you. I think, and he knows because he's out there pitching every day, and I understand it because we were working on some projects together. Right now is a really tough time to pitch because nobody knows what tomorrow brings. I must have had 6 conversations with clients that any other time, any other year, it would have been, I would have locked it up in 2 seconds.
Right.
It just kind of dissipated. The conversations were fast and furious, and then it kind of went away because they're not sure to put their money behind it. They're not ready to green light some stuff. They haven't got their funding on the other side of it. So it's a little bit of like chicken before the egg. So I think when we get to like mid-year, and Dave, I mean this, when we get to mid-year, I do feel that it's going to open up because content is like, luckily we squeaked through 2020, able to get, there's a film out there that they were able to shoot in COVID, Malcolm and Marie, I think it's called. like amazing that they were able to go into lockdown for 3 weeks and get that film done. But
Yeah.
that just wasn't the norm. So there's going to be a real hunger, especially with so much. Paramount Plus is also just launched. They're going backwards and looking to a lot of like Frasier's being rebooted.
Yeah.
Punky Brewster just announced that she had all this footage. So I
Yeah.
think it's just trying to find, dealing with talent, seeing like a Punky Brewster's, their content that they've had all along, and they want to just finally put it out there. Someone like John Oates, who, just knew he wanted to get his buddies together and create beautiful songs for the benefit of Feeding America. We just have to be more creative. It's just not going to be as easy as getting in the room and pitching. We're going to have to figure out workarounds wherever we go, because not everybody is ready to greenlight stuff because they don't know where the trends are going. We went from like, hey, let's cut the cord, and now it's like, well, we need to bring all this shit back together. I was talking to Dave Mace about it, because there's just so many streamers. How do you get all of them going?
I
So I
can't
think
get
that
everything watched. I want to
it's
watch so many things. I'm
the
intimidated.
Producers Guild. We have to get our ballots in very soon, and I'm like, I haven't even watched half this. I'm like, literally, I feel like I'm jamming for a final exam. Like, I'm trying to cram it all in. I'm not going to make the deadline, but I've watched a good amount. But there's just so much good content out there. But I think working with A-listers, you have to find their passion. You have to find what makes them tick, what moves the needle for them. It's not just like, hey, what can we get out of them? It's like, well, what can we give to them? Like, hey, who thought that Selena Gomez would be doing cooking? And she is, and she has a very successful show. So it's just finding their passion projects.
It's like I tell people, I tell clients, I say, what's in it for them to cover you?
Exactly.
You
Exactly. It
know,
has to be, both sides have to win.
and as publicists, I think people need to come to you with an idea of how you can win utilizing their client. Because
Absolutely.
really, like, if you're not doing that, what are you doing?
Right.
Like, and you have so many people coming at you that it bears preparation to
It does. It's so
present you
funny.
with something.
Chris, who I know is watching upstairs. Chris will say to me, he goes, all of a sudden he'll joke around. All of a sudden he'll ding, 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 ding. It's like 10 emails coming in a row. He goes, how do you make heads or tails of it? I'm like, at night when the little one goes to sleep, I go through anything that needs to be taken. And my inbox, my IT guy wants to strangle me because my inbox is huge. I don't throw any publicist, like any PR, not anything out. I keep everything because I like to refer to it like, oh, this single was out in 2015 and now they're working on this. And I like to
And
see
when
the
you get a
trajectory.
different project and you need to go
Yes.
source something, then you
Exactly.
can
So I
find
hold
it.
on to the press releases, and I think it's important because then, there's also a lot of the merry-go-round of artists moving from publicist to publicist, as you know well, and that gets frustrating as bookers because you're like, I know one of our mutual friends just lost a client that she was with for a long time, and
Yeah,
she
I
did a
read
lot of
that.
great work for the client. I won't say who it is because I want to call
Yeah.
it out, but like, I'm all about loyalty as well. I'm a very loyal person, but I understand sometimes if things have to shift, maybe the relationship has gone to as far as it needs to go. But there's something about like just remembering, who helped put you where you are, and to remember that.
To that end, it's really funny. I've been booking interviews on Sean Cran from Slipknot's podcast,
Hmm.
and I turned my camera on to say hello to him before he interviewed Perry Farrell, and he was like, "It's you." And I'm like, "Yes, it's me. Who'd you think it was?" He goes, "Oh,
Right, exactly.
and I was like, "Yeah, He goes, "When's the last time I saw you?" I said, "Jones Beach, when you were on tour with Lamb of God, and you acted equally stunned to see me." So
That band, I have to tell you, that is probably the scariest band when they would wear those masks that I mean, they used to terrify me. I would have nightmares watching them. And
you
my
know
favorite story is you like, Leah, those masks stink.
oh my God, we were at a show in San Diego, and the smell just wafted everywhere, and I was like dying.
They
Terrible.
stayed in character though. They stayed in
Yes, they
character.
did, but I was his first publicist.
Right.
And he didn't forget, and that was nice to me.
Exactly. I think it's important because, it's really publicists and people that work with talent, it's a very unsung situation. Get them to the mark, get them on the red carpet, get them this gig, get them. It's like, it's not always appreciated. And that's why I've cultivated a group of people I work with now. They're very appreciative as much as I appreciate them. They have, we can have not even arguments, just an open dialogue about how a show might flow better on something. Like, that's why I love working with John. John's like, okay, how do we do this? And we'll have a discussion about what would work better in a certain act. Like, I'm super excited to get that show launched because it's been a short amount of time, but we've done incredible work in that short amount of time.
Oh, it's going to
And
be
he
amazing.
became an EP very fast. It was great.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, isn't it such a pleasure to work with someone who's been around the block, like who
100%. And
knows?
there's no ego. There's no ego. It's like, let's do this. How do we do it? And he's a true musician's musician, which is why so many have shown up to support him,
Yeah, I hear
because
that
he
about
just
him.
speaks the language. He speaks that shorthand with them, which is really amazing. But that's something. It's like, if I had a bonsai tree, that's that is my career. I'm constantly chopping and cutting and chopping and cutting to have the healthiest branches I could have. And that means working with clients and friends that do what they love to do and respect you in the process. And it's just a collective group of people trying to get the end game in the best way possible.
I like the bonsai tree metaphor.
That's the way I've
Tommy
always
would
thought
like
about my
that. He's
career.
into
Cut out the dead
bonsais.
leaves, you know?
Mine is like whack-a-mole, just trying to keep them
Well,
down.
that's right.
Yeah.
That's true. Right. What am I putting out today? Sometimes I feel like that in my life day to day, but yes.
Please, my
Chris
entire
will
life
tell you
has
the
been
same.
one big game of whack-a-mole. But but to wrap up, I want to get into how can people support what you're doing? Like one thing I'm thinking of is come watch you DJ on Twitch. Raquel Loves Drive on
Yeah.
Wednesday nights and Saturday nights. But what else can people do to support what you do?
I think, Dana Giraldi just reached out and she's going to involve me in a women's month, like doing a spotlight on women because she has all women that work for her. I
Nice.
think just, thinking, sending stuff my way. If you think that there's a cool, article about something that, I'm all about my research. So, it's so funny because we have the little crew of ours on the Aqua Tool. Like we have like our vinyl junkie. If you go on Facebook, we have a direct message, just like six of us talking about, oh my God, did you get the Tina Turner, burgundy record? Did you get the Pat Benatar blue vinyl? I mean, we just love keeping ourselves informed, not just on the vinyl side of things, but I think in general, just about like business opportunities. If anyone sees that someone's looking for a booker or a talent producer or thinking of ways to collaborate, I'm all about it. And I say the same on the music side. If someone wants me to check something out, to give a listen, to give it my 2 cents, I'm open to that always. But I also, if anyone has any questions tonight, I'd love to help answer because I know my friends come on Twitch, but they don't always know what I do during the day. It's a
Yeah, no,
totally,
I've been looking on the chat for
yeah.
questions and I've repeated a few of them. Let's see. Ah, Chris Kyra asks, how about boundary setting with male-dominated music scene? 15 minutes late, you lose your slot. Okay, yeah, I remember that for sure. Do you feel like there were doors closed to you, or you just busted them open? I feel like.
I it took me a while to bust them open. I didn't really have as much confidence when you're at Viacom. You kind of toe the company line, but luckily I had very strong women mentors when I was at Nickelodeon. I had Diane, I had Dad, Susan Kearns, who unfortunately is no longer with us. So I had very strong female role models, and of course my mom, who basically was, fearless. She's like, if you want to do it, you're going to do it. My parents were great about saying, you go after anything you want to go after. But Chris has witnessed me, I will say something in a meeting and I kind of get glossed over. I mean, this was maybe also earlier on in my when I started Drive. You're trying to be a little bit quieter, you're trying to fit in, you're trying to not make as much noise. Now I'm like, this is who I am, take it or leave it.
Right.
And I'm going to be honest with you. It's like, if you're going to ask me for George Clooney for a reality show, we need to have a conversation. These are the people that make sense. And, and I'm also a New York talent booker where there's a lot in LA, and I love my LA bookers. We get on great, but I chose to stay here. My friend Melissa Chusett, also a fantastic booker.
Yeah, I know
We
Melissa.
choose to stay in New York because we know when people from LA are calling, it's like, I need the real deal. I need to know where we stand, what's going on. I mean, there's no BS. We're going to
Yeah.
tell it to you straight. Like, in fact, I forward responses from my publicists and say, this is why they passed. This is why they can't do a show. And they love that because they're like, okay, I'm getting the real answer on this. They may
Oh,
not love the outcome of it, but they're like, okay, let's pivot and figure out how do we make it work. So there have been times where it's a male dominated upper echelon, but then there's been other times like on Logo, it was all male and me. And I had the greatest experience. I just think it depends on, there's a lot of work that needs to get done. The fact that we don't have representation still in the Directors Guild, Producers Guild has gotten a lot better. There's still a lot of work to be done. There's still that toxic masculinity that exists. I mean, I won't even get into
oh,
politics,
please.
but it's we need to stop being marginalized as women in general.
But and I agree with you, but the thing that I hate is some people take that and make it an excuse not to do their best.
I mean, on which side you
On
mean?
women, like young women, to me, like, I mean, hey, we come from the era in the music industry where, people threw things at us and berated us in front of other people. And like,
Right.
it sucked, but it made
Yeah.
us stronger people coming through it.
Yeah. It did.
And I feel like everyone is handled with kid gloves now. And
They are,
maybe
but I
that's an
think that it's
excuse.
finding that balance between being also understanding in the younger generation. I've guided a lot of them, like, things are not just going to be handed to you. You have got to do the work. Any project that I bring on, back in the day when I had interns, the intern along with myself are in those trenches making it happen. No job is below me or above me. Everyone gets to do the work.
Yeah.
And you've seen me on red carpets. I'm running around like a crazy person. And I think I was even pregnant on that one that night,
Yeah.
that year that we did it. So, you know, I just think that there should not be excuses. I think everyone should be treated fairly and equally. I think the voices should be heard. But I also think, for the younger generation coming up, you got to do the work. Just because it looks glossy and pretty on IG does not mean that's what's really going on.
Yeah.
That is staged. Those are filters, things just don't happen. And I think
We
that
hustled for what we got.
we hustled, and I still hustle. I mean,
You
there's not a day
do.
that goes by that I'm not hustling. I'm hustling 24/7. And as an owner of a company, I'll be hustling to the very end.
Yeah.
And even, but the funny thing is, like, even when I was at Viacom and MTV, any of my bosses will tell you, I never sat on my laurels. That's why I was like trying to get from one job to the next, because I wanted to do more and more and more, and they didn't know how to handle me, because they were
Right.
like, okay, and that's how I was able to get Employee of the Year in 1996 at Viacom, because I was like, okay, I'll start this council, and I'll do Thursday Think, and I'll do an internship for the boss I had lost. I love, and I ran a zine.
Yeah.
So, I am a crazy person. Chris will tell you I'm a workaholic, and he's absolutely correct. I've learned to slow down being a mom,
Yes.
because it's important to have quality time. And I think I mentioned this to you earlier, it's also, as an entrepreneur, it's getting used to the quiet time, and not feeling that you have to fill that up with even more work. It's like,
Yeah.
okay, maybe it's time to meditate, think about other people you want to work with, and being comfortable in that zone. That's
Oh
the
yeah.
trickiest thing for me. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I stress myself out way too much. I gave myself shingles in my 30s. So like, yeah, that was
Your
entertaining.
clients only knew how much you put it out there for them.
I was in Sharon Osbourne's office and she was yelling, "What happened to your face?" So because they were on the left side of my face.
Oh my God. Well, that's when
So,
you're like, I need to take a
well,
minute. And I
yeah, my
think that's
nephew
what
helped
COVID,
me
that's
with
what
that.
pandemic did. Pandemic did that. It forced us all to slow down and really take stock of what's important in our lives,
Yeah.
for work, for family, for friends, which is why I value every Wednesday and Saturday. I value you guys coming in here. I'm grateful for that, because it means that my energy and your energy, we're able to be together when we can't be together. And that's important. That was an important part of this whole thing.
That's your gift to humanity.
I
I
love
gotta
you.
say, it's gotten me through many a week. And I want to thank you for that. I want to thank you for coming on here. Where can people find you social media wise?
So on Twitch, it's Raquel Loves Drive. On Instagram, it's Raquel Loves Drive. I'm on LinkedIn under my name, Raquel Bruno. And then of course on Facebook, although I think there are a couple of those lovely Raquel Brunos on there. And then of course, if anyone needs to see my credits, you can go to IMDb Pro or imdb.com. And you can, if anyone ever needs to figure out what I do for a living, you can go on there. And then of course, www.driveentertainmentgroup.com. It has a sizzle reel up there as well and the stuff that I work
Awesome.
on.
Ever
So
the Mod, our Mod Pro friend, put the Instagram up. So
of course, because she's the best moderator in the world next to
yeah,
Thaddy Boo.
I need to clone her and find one for myself. But thank you for your time. This was a
Of
lot of
course.
fun, and we'll have to
Of
do an
course.
update in a few months.
I'm in. Absolutely. Thank you for bringing me into the mix. And I'm proud of you for doing this, Jamie, because this is what you bring to the table. And, just the industry standard, you're always top excellence of everything you do, whether you're at Universal or Roadrunner, wherever you were. It's like, you're good about bringing people together and making sure that people, like, I remember your game nights. I mean, I just have to say, like, your game nights were amazing. And I met Tara, I met so many good people from game nights and just going out. And I remember when we were at Ozfest and we went backstage with Roger Coletti. And
Oh my
I thank you
God.
for all that you do in this industry. You're not just a publicist to me. You're a good friend, and thank you. I love you.
Oh, we have been friends a long time, and we will be friends forever. And
We'll be
you
sitting
know,
on our porch drinking our lemonades.
yeah, with Jacob sitting on my lap, and
Exactly.
I feel like it's job karma almost. It's
Yeah.
general like work world karma. And you
Hmm.
do the same thing. You put people together also, and I think it's really important. And I think I did learn some of that from Michelle Ferguson. So
100%. 100. And I'm telling you, she did that with Ken Scordato and I will thank her forever
that's
because Ken's
amazing.
one of my closest friends, guy friends, I'm grateful every day that he's in my life.
No,
So
I gotta
Michelle
I
and
gotta make her
Sarah, I remember
watch
when
this.
Sarah worked with her too.
Yeah.
So, but
Uh,
thank you for doing this. And yeah, I would love to come back again
we're
to
gonna
chat
do
more.
it again
Sure.
soon.
All right. I
Thank
love
you.
it.
Thank you everyone for checking this
Bye, Twitch
out.
friends.
And we will see you next week. Or actually not even next week, this Wednesday
On
with
Wednesday for Chris's birthday. What,
Kenny
what?
Zaleski.